Arccaptain sent me this Flux core MIG welder and some wire. So that's pretty cool. And I actually have already had one of their products for a while. My brother bought me this arc welder as a gift so then I could kind of practice arc welding and see if arc welding wasn't a better option for some of the projects that I was doing over MIG. And I gotta say, and I'm not the professional go-to guy to be telling people what is a good welder and what isn't, but I gotta say I'm impressed by this thing. My first impressions was it's so small and so light that I wasn't sure what to expect from it, because growing up, arc welders to me were these huge steel boxes on the ground with wiring that you had to like wire into your, electrical box in your garage and stuff. They just seem huge and strong, and this thing's so small. But to my surprise, after I put it together and plugged it in, it really does work really well. And I'm not a good arc welder by any means, but just the fact that I could set it up and start welding, and even after a few minutes, I was kind of starting to get the hang of it. And it's a good little machine, so I'm excited to see what this Flux core MIG welder is like. This old MIG welder is what I usually use, and I was having wire feed problems with it, and then it actually ran out of cover gas. And this isn't my welder, so I gave the tank back to the owner. But the nice thing about these is with Flux core, you don't have to have cover gas. And that's huge because I don't weld a lot, but having to buy cover gas and lease a tank to put the cover gas in, it adds up. It's expensive. It's a lot of extra money. And with this, the flux cord wire kind of eliminates that. So, but anyways, let's get this thing unboxed. Cool. So this was everything that was in the box. Got the welder obviously, and it already has the MIG gun hooked in. Instructions, warranty card, they gave a couple of consumables. They always send these brushes, wire brushes with all their machines. Came with a strap, which I have never held onto a welder or had it hanging off my shoulder while I was welding, but if that's something you do, at least it comes with a strap. The machine did come with a roll of wire, and they also sent me a second one as well, so that's cool. These are 2-pound spools. So I'm not sure how long the wire is in these, but these aren't very expensive anyway, so you could stock up on a whole bunch of these. And to be honest with you, when I was doing a welding course, the spools of wire that we dealt with were huge and they were hard to install. So these little spools, especially if you're new to welding, are super easy to hook up compared to the the huge spools of wire. Came with the ground, and then to my surprise, it came with the arc welding attachment. So now I have 2 machines from Arccaptain that can both arc weld, so that's really cool. Hopefully you can see this, and I'll show that more once it's plugged in. But easy hookups down here to hook in your ground, and in this case the other arc wire. And the instructions tell you which one is what. Awesome. I guess it's probably sealed so it doesn't rust. There we go. So with MIG welders, when you put new wire in, it has to be on because there's a little motor in here that pulls on the wire and pushes it through. So in order to get it to the end of your MIG gun, gotta have it on. It's got a little bend in it that holds the wire steady in that little spool. Cut that off. Run it through there. Tighten that down. Now, gotta take this off. I may be wrong, but I always take these off as well. Your consumables. I think it just makes it easier to get the wire through. And you gotta hold these straight as you can. Straighten this thing out a little bit so I move the camera. There it is. Alright, so I got the wire going through the end. That's the consumable that I took out. And now you can put your wire right through that. I think that's easier. I don't think you're supposed to leave that in when you're putting new wire on. But I could be wrong. But this is how I've always done it. That's kind of cool. This thing just... Can't tell if it threads on there or if it's just a compression thing. I think it's just a compression thing. But now it's got wire in it. So we'll shut this off. Here's what it looks like underneath this cover. So obviously you put your spool in, and you always want your wire coming from the side closest to the feed for the wire, obviously. You know, you don't want that over here and then bending around the corner. It wouldn't even work that way probably. But you got this little deal here that you loosen, lift that up, and it releases the oh, I don't know what you'd call them, the little wheels in there that put pressure on the wire. And I think you can adjust the pressure on that as well. Right now it seems to be feeding fine, so I'm not going to do anything with it. Got these little spring clips that hold that down. Now I'm going to put the ground in. So according to these directions, you put the ground in the left hole, which I think is weird because it says positive. I would think the ground would be negative, but that's what it says. So one thing you should know about welding in any of my videos, I'm not a professional welder. I just do it as a hobby. And all those videos of professionals using beginner equipment or, you know, less expensive options for people that don't weld a lot, and they make it look really easy and professional, all that. You won't find that at my channel. So any problems I have, you're gonna know. But got it all set up. It's grounded out right now, so once they turn the machine on, it should be ready to go, other than making some adjustments on the voltage and all that. And there's also you can choose between MIG, Arc, and TIG. I do not have the TIG equipment for this, but being that it's on there, this machine, the MIG 130, may be able to do TIG welding as well. So I'm hoping this ground is in the right spot. I really don't understand that. A ground I would think would be negative, but anyway. So I'll be honest with you, I have never used flux core wire before. I think basically every MIG welder, you can have flux core wire in it, but I have always used cover gas, so I've never had to get flux core. From what I do know about flux core, I think it's a little bit dirtier than using cover gas. I think it gives off a lot of smoke, a lot more smoke than when you're using cover gas. And you have to make sure that your steel is really, really clean, I think. So I have some just random pieces here that I hold on to. I never throw away any little pieces of metal. I always keep them on hand in case if I need to dial in a machine or get some practice. Honestly, if I don't weld for a while, I'm terrible at it when I start up again. So I always like to have pieces like this on hand so that I can test my welding skills on something before I make a part or weld up a machine or whatever that I'm working on. But I have this thing grounded. It has a switch on the back. Get this turned on. Let's do 95, which I think is about half. And we are on the MIG setting. So your wire speed does indicate what kind of amperage you can have. And it's kind of genius how this works, because when you're operating at a faster wire feed speed, your minimum amperage is 60, but when you go to a slower one, it goes down to 40. if you have an old welder that doesn't have certain features like this that kind of helps you adjust your power and your wire speed, then you can really mess up your welds on some of the older equipment. But this one kind of sets your minimums for power and wire speed, and that's kind of genius actually. Let's just do right in the middle, and let's do 95. See how that goes. Here's the wire brush I gave you. So I put a little bit of weld down there. I apologize, my GoPro doesn't zoom or focus very well. Not bad for flux core. Not bad at all. And I really can't believe how slow the wire feeds. And in a way, that's a kind of a good thing, because it makes you take your time with your technique. And just doesn't rush you. I have the wire speed on this other welder so high that, you know, you're moving, you're booking. And with this, it kind of makes you slow down. And that's not a bad thing. So turn this up just a tad. Let's do 100. Try not to trip the breaker in my garage. Not related to this welder at all. My wiring for my garage is not good. So when you're welding or running an air compressor or whatever, sometimes it trips my breakers. That's pretty good. I'm impressed. This is the second time Arccaptain has impressed me. I remember when I was about 15, 16 years old, and my main hobby at the time was working on old garden tractors, and there were so many times that all I needed to do was weld some pieces on my tractors that were broken or whatever, and instead I had to like drill into them and make brackets and use bolts, and all I needed was a welder. And a welder like this MIG 130 from Arccaptain, you know, you're only looking at a little over $100 to maybe a couple $100, depending on where you buy it from. And for a machine this cheap and this easy to maintain and use, you could do a lot. If you're into mini bikes, go-karts, garden tractors, whatever, this would work for most of your applications for that type of stuff. And this took me not very long to put 2 small beads of weld down, and you know, this is 1/8 inch steel, and it's strong, and that's impressive coming from a little machine like this. There's definitely more splatter and slag using this style of MIG. I don't get as much splatter with my other MIG welder when I'm using cover gas, but a big part of splatter and slag is how well you're welding, and I don't always weld very well. So how messy it is kind of depends on how good you get at welding, but that's why I have a welding bench. You can always grind it down, not a big deal. When I took a welding class years and years and years ago, and I remember my instructor told me, because I was so concerned about how the weld looked. I was so used to seeing, you know, videos of professional welders putting down stacks of dimes, and it looked amazing. And he told me, he said, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. He said it matters that it's strong and isn't going to fail. So ever since he told me that, I've been less worried about how good my welds look and more about how strong they are. And they're not terrible welds though either, so I think they look okay. I've seen worse welds on professional equipment that you buy. So this is a cool little machine. I'm impressed. A little dirty on the end of that, which is normal. But yeah, if you're looking for a cheap MIG welder flux core, I definitely recommend Arccaptain. I know there's a lot of different brands. Every store has this version of their own. You know, a cheaper 110 volt flux core welding machine. You know, Harbor Freight has one, Menards has one, Fleet Farm has one. They all have one. But the reason I would buy one of these over one of those is if you just go to the Arccaptain site, it's extremely professional compared to some of these off-brand companies that do, you know, flux core welders for these stores that kind of, you know, Arccaptain's whole business model is made around being professional but also being affordable and dependable. So, and if you live out in the middle of nowhere and you do not have a Harbor Freight nearby or whatever, a lot of Arccaptain's business is done online, not only on their own website but on Amazon, and you can have this shipped right to you and you don't have to worry about driving to a store somewhere just to get an extremely off-brand welder. At least with these, they have great customer service, they have parts, they have everything you need. So it's a good machine. And I am much better at doing MIG than I am Arc. I'll admit that. I highly recommend getting one of these if you're just looking for an affordable MIG welder to do small projects with. I'm impressed, and you know, to be honest with you, the more as time goes by and the farther into the future we get, I can't believe how good of products are manufactured for the prices that they're sold at. See, 10 years ago, anytime you saw a product extremely cheap, you knew it was going to be junk. You knew it was, you know, going to break and have issues. And nowadays, I think that's changing a lot. And I think people are still having a hard time getting used to that. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they source material and manufacture stuff and then sell it for what they sell it for. But nowadays, there's some really good products getting put out into the DIY industry that are kind of changing things for people. It's more affordable to get into this type of thing nowadays than it used to be. But if anyone has any questions or comments or anything, please let me know. And in the description of this video, I do have a link on there. It's my affiliate link. If you want to buy one of these, you can use that link and you'll get 5% off. So I will definitely have more videos with this here soon. So there's the welds one more time. I am going to keep welding with this thing. It is pretty cool. And big thanks to Arccaptain for sending me this. I hope that anyone watching this really considers, if they need a MIG welder for their own projects, this is a good one. So, but anyways, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.